You're not inconsistent because you're lazy. You're inconsistent because you're stuck between two identities. One version of you wants to change and become a new person, build that life that you want, and the other version just wants that comfort. And until that changes, nothing that you start will ever last. So if you've ever wondered why you keep starting strong, but then you fall off, or you lose momentum, or you slip back into old habits, then this video will explain your whole entire life. In the last video of this series, I spoke about how you need to let go of the old identity and start building that new version of yourself to build the life that you want. Because I know you want to see change. I know you want to build this life, chase the dreams that you have in your head. I know that's what you want. But when you start some things and you fall off, you end up slipping into those old habits again. So today we're talking about consistency and why that matters more than motivation. Because motivation, it comes and goes. We know that. You know, some days you want to go to the gym, some days you don't. But the people that are successful in the gym are the people who go even when they don't feel like it. The people who are successful in business are the ones who work on it even when they don't feel like it. And that's consistency. That's not about motivation. These people don't have a level of motivation that's crazy or unique to them, and you don't have it for some reason. That's not the case. These people have built systems and have structures and have habits that allow them to stay consistent when they don't feel like it. And those times when people don't feel like it is when the most progress is made, because that's when the majority of people will stop or won't do it. But the 1% who do are the ones who are successful in what they want to build. And when we're talking about building the life that you want, it doesn't have to be a multi-million empire. If that's what you want, then perfect. If you just want to do something and chase your purpose and be successful in that, then that's brilliant as well. But either way, you're going to need consistency for that. So you see, most people think that their problem is motivation. But that's not the case. It's not discipline. It's not willpower. Because if motivation was your problem, you wouldn't keep starting. Because that's motivation in itself, for you to start something that you haven't done before. Because you know that if I do this, then it's going to get me into the shape that I want. It's going to get me to the place that I want to be business-wise. It's going to get me that romantic partner that I want. And I'm motivated to do that and start doing those things. The reason that you stop is because of consistency. And there's a psychological reason behind that that no one tells you about. It's nothing to do with your motivation. It's nothing to do with your willpower. You already know what to do. You know that you need to train, you know that you need to eat better, sleep, write down your goals, build habits around those goals, do the tasks that are going to make you the money that you want to make, or build the legacy that you want to build. You know that you need to do that. But the real problem is that very few people can do that consistently. And it's down to psychology. So let's dive into that. So let's be honest, starting is the easy part. Starting Monday is easy, doing the task that you've been putting off, starting the gym, starting that new project that you wanted to start. It's easy. We can all do that. But it's when Tuesday comes, it's when Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, when you don't feel like it, when life gets in the way and life gets tough. That's when it gets tough. And that's when consistency becomes your issue. But it's not that you can't be consistent. It's not that you're not motivated. The reason that you stay stuck is because of that identity that we discussed in the last video. You're trying to become a new person with old habits. And that's why consistency never sticks, because there's internal friction with what you want to achieve and who you actually are. So you might want to build this empire, you might want to build this crazy body, get that relationship, but you can't with the internal systems that you still have around, the identity that you still have connected to yourself. So if you haven't watched the last video, then I suggest you do, because that's all about shifting your identity to the person that you want to become. And until that's done, then consistency is going to be a really big problem for you. We need to make sure that our identity lines up to what we want to achieve first and foremost, because if it doesn't, then consistency is going to be so tough for you. So let me explain this to you using the identity conflict, because every single day there's two versions of yourself at this moment in time. The old you wants comfort, just to do the same familiar things that your body, your mind is used to. It's easy, you can do it. It's second nature. The new you wants to chase the purpose, wants to be that new version of you that you want to become. But the old you wants quick dopamine, wants to scroll, wants to order a takeaway, wants to do things that instantly will give you dopamine. But the new version of you wants long-term delayed gratification. The old you wants comfort. The new you wants progress. The old you wants easy, simple tasks, comfort. The new you wants discipline. And this, my friends, is called identity conflict. Because the old version of you is happy doing what you're doing, but the new version of you is not. And you want to build that life that you want. But that conflict and tension is what disrupts the consistency that you need. Because when that conflict and tension exists, your brain almost always will choose the easier option, the familiar option, the thing that you've been doing for months and years and is used to. Because it wants to keep you safe, as we discussed before. And that's why you can genuinely want to change, but keep doing the same things as before. Because you're not weak, you're conflicted. So your brain doesn't repeat what's best for you. It repeats what feels normal. So if you scroll at night, your brain is going to put you in the position to do that. If you procrastinate all the time, your brain is going to justify that. If you skip workouts, again, your brain is going to think, oh, that's okay, we always do that. Your brain just repeats what's familiar to you. And if those things are familiar to you, you're going to keep doing it. Because consistency breaks when you rely on logic instead of understanding behaviour. Let that sink in. Because behaviour doesn't come from logic, it comes from patterns. And you know what? Patterns don't care about your goals. They care about familiarity. Because that's what your brain wants. The familiar, the normal, the safe option. So to bring new patterns, you need to bring new behaviours, and consistently. But you can't do that just yet. And here's something that people don't realise. Your brain, it doesn't follow that motivation that you've got. It follows cues. So your environment tells you who to be before you've even thought about it. That phone in your hand signals to your brain to distract. Lying on your bed during the day, not separating your environments, signals procrastination. When you lie on your bed, you procrastinate. You're not productive when you're lying on your bed, are you? But it can be the same with positive habits as well. Your desk, where you work, signals to your brain that is work mode. Your shoes, putting your running shoes on, putting your gym kit out, signals to yourself movement, gym time, workout time. The kitchen signals eating. So if you're someone who struggles with snacking at night, then don't go in the kitchen. And it's the same with time of day. For example, if nighttime is somewhere where you lack discipline, where you lack boundaries, you have a weaker mindset, as soon as that nighttime comes, those behaviours come as well. And we need to break those patterns in order for you to do the behaviours that you want to do to build the life that you want. But you see, the reason that most of these things happen is because they're called ritual triggers. And that's because you don't choose most of your habits. You respond to signals that indicate what habit is going to come as a result of that. Which means if you want consistency, you don't need more motivation. You need better cues, better environmental cues, better cues, not having your phone in your hand at 9 o'clock at night before bed, not putting yourself in the kitchen after you've just had dinner and you know you're going to snack. By having better cues, you'll have more consistency as a result. So look, here's what I need you to understand. Your life isn't built by what you do when you're motivated. It's built mainly by what you do when you're not. Because the people who have the most motivation in the world or make the most progress are the most successful are not the most motivated. They have the best systems, the best cues, the best routine, environments around them. Those are the most successful, and the ones that build the lives that they want. It's not the ones who are the most motivated. Because motivation is unreliable. We all know that. You know, like I said, you don't wake up and one day you're just magically motivated 24/7. Motivation, it comes and it goes. We all know that. But those systems, those strategies, those structures, that's what stays on the days when you don't feel like it. So if you want to build the life that you want, then we need to figure out how to build the consistency and the systems and the identity that will allow you to do that. Not start relying on motivation and building the motivation, because that doesn't happen. So consistency is not about intensity. It's not about how intense you're doing things, about how intense your motivation is. It's about how you show up when it feels pretty average, when it doesn't feel the best. That's how you build consistency for the long term. But how do you actually do that? That's the real question. How do you actually create that consistency when you're not someone who's been consistent in the past? So let me talk to you about something called the 48-hour rule. And this is what disrupts a lot of people's consistency and building that consistency. When someone misses one day, working on their goals, working on their physique, working on their business, their relationship, whatever that goal is, when someone misses one day, that's fine. You're not going to be perfect all the time. You will miss a day. But when that day turns into 2 and 48 hours, that's when it's a lot harder to build that consistency. Because if you miss one day, could even be by accident. If you miss 2 days, that's when you're signaling to your brain, okay, we're back into the old swing of things, back into our old identity now. This is what we're used to. You know, he tried, but we're back to it now. So if you let yourself have that 48 hours of not doing the habits consistently, it's going to be a lot harder to build that consistency as a result, especially at the beginning stage of you trying to build that new identity. It's not about missing one day. It's about letting it spiral and letting that gap widen. That one day missed is fine. You can still build that consistency from that point. It's not like, you know, one day missed, we've absolutely failed here. It's when you tell your brain and let your brain think, okay, we're back to old habits now. Because that gap widens and you've let it widen as a result of missing 2 days of you trying to build that new habit. Your brain needs consistency for a good couple of weeks, 3-4 weeks even, to build new habits and a new identity. Even longer for the actual identity to change. But for new habits to be built, you need to do things consistently for a good couple of weeks. So if you're already missing 48 hours of a new habit that you're building, you're going to go back to old habits. Your brain's going to signal, yeah, we're back to old habits again. So if you want consistency, you don't need inspiration, you don't need motivation. You just need to follow some guidelines, some rules, some structure around the consistency that you're trying to build. Because if you just free flow, you just rely on motivation, you know what's going to happen. It's happened in the past and nothing's going to change. So here are some basic guidelines and rules that I'd say, you know what, stick to these and your consistency building will be a lot easier. So rule number 1, never miss 48 hours. Never miss twice. You miss once and you're human. You miss twice and it signals to your brain, we're back to old habits, back to old routines. And that consistency, it's not going to come. So on that second day, if you have missed one day, just show up. Just show up as best as you can. Even if it's messy, even if it's not perfect, just show up, make the effort and get back on track. Never miss 2 days. Rule number 2, reduce the habit before you break it. So what do I mean by that? For example, if you are looking to read 10 pages a day, but you've never read before, and the first day, because you're really motivated, as you say, you smashed out the 10 pages. Maybe the second day you did the same, but the third day, your old habits start to sneak back in and you think, you know, what am I doing? Why am I even reading this? I'm not learning anything, blah, blah, blah. Well, reduce the habit before you break it. You might not have built that habit yet in 2 days, but if you just stop there and then stop again the next day, it will break. Whereas if you read 5 pages, if you read 1 page, that is better than nothing because you're reducing the habit before it fully breaks. It's the same thing with steps or food, nutrition, you know? If you're reducing the amount of steps that you do because 5,000 was too many, it's better than skipping it completely. So just reduce that habit that you're trying to build before you fully stop and fully break it. Because you'll make so much more progress if you just keep consistent with something around the habit rather than nothing. Consistency beats intensity every single time. So if you're consistent with the habit, even if it's not as many reps or as many pages as you first started with, if you're consistent with something around that habit, it beats the intensity of it every single time. And you'll build a habit a lot easier by doing that. Because your brain doesn't reward perfection, it rewards repetition. Remember that. And rule number 3, which we touched upon in the last video, is all about environment. Setting up your environment for the win. Your environment decides your behaviour before willpower and motivation ever do. Remember that. It's like people say, if you want to go to the gym in the morning at 5 a.m. tomorrow, put your gym clothes out already. If you want to eat healthier, meal prepping, having those meals, having the ingredients ready and you see those will help massively. Putting your phone outside your room so that when you wake up, you don't, first thing you do, check your phone, check your notifications and put your body already in a high stress state. Your environment dictates your behaviours. So if you have a poor environment or a poor setup, then you can expect poor habits to keep continuing. And that consistency that you're trying to build, it's not going to happen. So set your environment up for a win and you're doing so much for the new behaviours that you're trying to create. Because what you're doing is you're making the right behaviour easier than the wrong one, because you're setting your environment up for the right behaviours and the right habits to occur. And it's as simple as that. Your environment dictates a lot of what you do. So if you're living in a bad environment, if you're surrounded by bad behaviours and environments, it's going to be a lot harder to build that consistency that you want. And you know that. Now here's the part that most people don't want to hear. And it's comfort versus promises. And you're inconsistent because you keep choosing comfort over the promises that you're making yourself. Every time you break a promise, your identity loses trust in you. The same way that you build trust for other people is the same way that you build trust for yourself. And if you're constantly making your promises to yourself to go to the gym, to start walking more, to eat better, and you constantly breaking them, you're breaking that trust and that self-respect in yourself. And as a result, you're breaking the consistency and the habits that you're going to build. Listen, consistency isn't about discipline. It's about self-respect and self-trust. And every time you keep a promise to yourself, you're building that new identity. You're adding to that new identity because you're doing the things that you told yourself that you were going to do. Every time that you break it, you break the patterns around building that new identity and that new consistency that you're trying to build. So when you keep those small promises to yourself, the new identity builds. Not overnight, but slowly. You're building patterns, building habits that new version of you wants to do and is going to do. It might not look fancy. It might not be crazy habits. It might not be running an Ironman. It might be just going to the gym for the first time and doing that for 3 times a week, sticking to your plan. It might be eating better and not getting a takeaway this week. Those habits, keeping those promises to yourself, shifts your identity. And it's as simple as that. So look, the only way for you to build consistency is by shifting the identity. But identity doesn't change through motivation. It changes through evidence. It changes through you repeating positive behaviours and positive habits for yourself consistently, because every time that you show up, your brain logs it. Your brain logs that evidence for that new identity to make it familiar. This person follows through. This person doesn't quit. He keeps showing up even when it's tough. Your brain logs those behaviours and it becomes part of your new identity. It becomes part of this person who doesn't rely on motivation, but relies on consistency of doing these things, of following through, of showing up. And eventually, that new identity, that new consistency pattern doesn't feel forced. And when something doesn't feel forced and it feels familiar instead, that's when it becomes automatic for you. That's when it becomes part of your new identity. And that's when you become consistent as a result. You don't become consistent because of your newfound motivation. You become consistent from showing up, from doing things that don't feel great, even when you're not motivated, and they become familiar. Because familiarity leads to consistency. Motivation doesn't do anything like that. So you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent enough that your brain finally believes you. And when that happens, the new version of you becomes something that you don't have to chase. It becomes who you are. So if you're someone trying to rebuild, if you're someone trying to build the life that you want, this is where it starts. The shift in identity to become more consistent and stop relying on motivation is where you begin to build the life that you want. Because building the life that you want isn't something out of the ordinary. It's just doing simple things consistently. And when you're able to do that quietly, consistently, one day at a time, that's when you'll become the person that you want to be. And that is when you'll build the life that you want.